Hey guys, tonight we are keeping secrets. The walls of the castle are strong, but the door is only as strong as the small iron box that holds it shut. We are joining the medieval locksmith. We are going to engineer the mechanical puzzle that protects the king's treasure. This is a story about geometry, springs, and the perfect click. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Now, hear the file on the metal, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The workshop stands at the edge of the market square, tucked between the cooper's yard and the silversmith's quarters. Unlike the blacksmith's forge 3 streets over, where the air shimmers with heat and the ground is scorched black with years of ember fall, this space breathes differently. The air here is cool, still, precise. You can smell it before you see it. Whale oil. The clean, almost sweet scent of it, mixed with the faint metallic tang of brass filings that have settled into every crack of the floorboards. The smell of precision. The smell of secrets made solid. The bench itself runs the length of the eastern wall, positioned to catch the morning light through 2 narrow windows. The wood is oak. Dark oak, worn smooth by decades of forearms resting against its edge, by the slow drag of metal across its surface. The grain runs horizontal, and if you look closely, you can see the valleys in the wood where files have been sharpened, where measurements have been scratched, where the locksmith's father and his father before him worked the same problems in iron and brass. There are no scorch marks here, no hammer dents in the floor. This is not a place of fire and force. This is a place of angles and tolerances measured in fractions of a hair's width. The tools hang on the wall in perfect order. Each one has its place. Each one returns to that place at the end of the day. There are files, so many files. Flat files for broad surfaces, round files for curves, needle files thin as wire for the delicate work of cutting teeth, half-round files, triangle files. Each one hangs from a wooden peg, and each peg is labeled in careful script that has faded to brown with age but remains legible. Below the files, the chisels, cold chisels for iron. Each one ground to a specific angle, 30 degrees for rough work, 45 degrees for precision, 60 degrees for the hardest metals. Below the chisels, the punches, center punches, pin punches, drift punches, each one in its wooden rack, sorted by diameter from left to right, smallest to largest. On the bench itself, the current work. A flat piece of iron, rectangular, 8 inches long and 4 inches wide. It sits in the leather-padded jaws of a bench vise, held firm but not crushed. The vise itself is mounted to the bench with 4 bolts, each one countersunk so nothing protrudes above the surface. The iron plate is clean, cleaner than you would expect. The locksmith has already spent an hour with pumice stone and oil, removing every trace of forge scale, every shadow of oxidation. The surface now catches the light like still water. You can see your reflection in it if you lean close enough. The locksmith sits on a 3-legged stool. It is low, lower than a normal chair. This puts his eyes at the same level as his work. He wears a leather apron, but it is not the heavy, scorched apron of the blacksmith. This one is lighter, thinner, stained with oil rather than ash. His hands are steady. They do not shake. They move with the certainty of someone who has performed the same motions 10,000 times. His fingers are long, and if you look at them in the right light, you can see the network of old scars. Thin lines from slipped files, small divots where hot solder has spattered. The permanent groove in his right index finger where the file handle has worn its signature into his flesh. He picks up a scribe. It is a simple tool, a steel rod sharpened to a needle point at one end, set into a wooden handle at the other. The handle is worn smooth, dark with the oil from his palm. He touches the point to the iron plate, not hard, just enough to mark. And then he begins to draw, a rectangle within the rectangle, 1/4 inch in from each edge. The scribe makes a sound, a quiet whisper, metal on metal. The line it leaves is bright silver against the darker surface of the iron, perfectly straight, perfectly parallel to the edge. He works without a ruler, without a guide. Just his eye and his hand, and the 10,000 times he has done this before. 4 lines, 4 perfect lines. Now he has a border and a center panel. The center panel is where the mechanism will live. The border is where the rivets will go. He sets down the scribe, picks up a different tool, a spring-loaded center punch. He positions it at the corner where 2 lines meet, presses down, click. A tiny dimple appears in the iron. He moves along the line, every half-inch, click, 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 16 dimples in total, 4 on each side. These mark where the drill will bite, where the rivets will eventually pass through. But first the case must exist. A lock is a box, a puzzle box, and like any box it needs sides. The locksmith reaches to his left, to a stack of iron strips that he cut and filed yesterday. Each strip is 8 inches long, 1 inch tall, 1/16 of an inch thick. The edges are not rough. They have been filed, deburred, smoothed until you can run your finger along them without drawing blood. He selects 4 strips, lays them out on the bench in a rectangle, 8 inches by 4 inches. The same dimensions as the base plate. Now comes the hammer, but this is not the 5-pound sledge of the blacksmith. This hammer weighs 8 ounces. The head is polished steel, slightly domed so it will not mar the work. The handle is hickory, 12 inches long, wrapped at the grip with thin leather cord for control. He picks it up, tests the weight. Even after 40 years, he tests the weight. Every tool, every time. He holds one of the iron strips upright against the edge of the base plate. The strip wants to fall. Gravity wants to pull it away. But he steadies it with the thumb of his left hand, while his right hand brings a small brass clamp from the rack above the bench. The clamp is no bigger than a clothespin. He sets it in place. The strip is now held vertical, perpendicular to the base. He taps it with the hammer, tap, just enough to seat it, to make sure it is flush. He checks the angle with a small square, a perfect 90 degrees. He nods. He reaches for the rivet. It is a short length of iron rod, 1/8 of an inch in diameter. One end has already been upset, mushroomed out into a small dome by the same hammer that now rests in his hand. He threads the rivet through one of the holes he marked with the center punch. The dimple guided the drill. The drill made the hole. And now the rivet passes through the base plate, through the matching hole in the side strip, and emerges on the other side. He turns the assembly over. The rivet protrudes perhaps a 1/4 inch. He sets the work on a small anvil, not the massive anvil of the blacksmith. This one weighs maybe 5 pounds. It is mounted to a wooden block on the bench. The surface is mirror bright. He positions the work so the mushroomed head of the rivet rests against the anvil face. The other end points up at the ceiling. He selects a ball-peen hammer, smaller than the first, maybe 4 ounces. The peen is a perfect hemisphere, polished smooth as glass. He raises the hammer, brings it down, tap. The end of the rivet flattens slightly, tap, a little more, tap. He is not hitting hard. He is not driving. He is persuading. The iron is spreading. Slowly, evenly, tap, tap, tap. The sound is rhythmic, precise. Each blow exactly the same force as the last. Tap, tap, tap. The rivet is mushrooming. The end is spreading into a dome that mirrors the head on the opposite side. Tap, tap, tap. Now it is wide enough that it will never pull through the hole. The 2 pieces of iron are married, permanently. He repeats the process, one rivet at a time, each one the same, tap, tap, tap. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. There is no hurry here. A lock that lasts 200 years is not built in haste. Tap, 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 the second rivet, then the third, then the fourth. The first side is now attached. He rotates the assembly, clamps the second strip, 4 more rivets, tap, tap, tap. The sound echoes softly off the stone walls of the workshop. Tap, tap, tap. It is a lullaby, the lullaby of making, of joining, of creating permanence from separate pieces. The third side, the fourth side, 16 rivets in total, 16 small domes, 8 on top, 8 on bottom. When he is finished, he holds the box up to the light. It is open at one end, a rectangular tube, 4 inches by 2 inches by 8 inches long. The rivets are perfect, each one the same size as its neighbors, each one centered in its hole. He runs his finger along the inside seam. Smooth. No sharp edges. Nothing that would catch on the mechanism that will eventually live inside. He sets the box in the vise. Gentle pressure, just enough to hold it. And now he reaches for a file. A flat file, 8 inches long. The teeth are medium cut, not too coarse, not too fine. He tests the handle. Tight. A loose handle will ruin the work, will ruin the rhythm. He positions the file at a 45-degree angle to the top edge of the box. And then he pushes. The file bites. The sound is like a whisper, like sand sliding across paper. Shhhhhhhh. The file moves forward 6 inches and then lifts away. He repositions, pushes again. Shhhhhhh. Every stroke the same length, the same pressure, the same angle. He is removing metal, fractions of a thousandth of an inch with each pass, but those fractions add up. He is leveling the top edge, making it perfectly flat, perfectly even, making sure that when the lid goes on there will be no gaps, no light, no weaknesses. Shhhhhhh. The file whispers its progress. Shhhhhhh. Metal dust begins to accumulate on the bench. Fine powder, grey silver. He pauses every 10th stroke to brush it away with a small horsehair brush. The powder falls into a wooden tray below the vise. Nothing is wasted. The filings will go to the brass founder. They have value. Shhhhhhh. 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 The rhythm is constant. His breathing matches it. In on the backstroke, out on the push. His shoulders are relaxed. There is no tension. Tension creates inconsistency. Inconsistency creates error. Error creates failure. And a failed lock is worse than no lock at all because it creates false confidence. Shhhhhhh. 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 20 strokes on one side. He rotates the box 90 degrees. 20 strokes on the next side. Rotate, 20 strokes. Rotate, 20 strokes. 80 strokes in total. He removes the box from the vise, holds it up, squints along the top edge, perfectly level. He nods, sets it down. Now we arrive at the concept, the reason this box exists. A lock is a maze. Think about that for a moment. Picture a hedge maze, tall walls, paths that branch and turn and double back, dead ends, false roots, and somewhere in the center a goal, a treasure, a door, a way through. The hedge maze works because you cannot see over the walls. You cannot see the path from above. You must commit to each turn without knowing if it leads forward or back. A lock is the same. The keyhole is the entrance to the maze. The key is the map, but the map must be exact, perfectly exact. One wrong turn, one incorrect dimension, and the key stops. Blocked by a wall it cannot pass. The wards are those walls, circles of iron, concentric circles, each one with gaps cut at specific angles, specific widths. The key must pass through each gap in sequence. If the key is too wide at any point, it strikes a wall. If a tooth is missing, the key cannot push past the corresponding ward. If a tooth is in the wrong place, same result. The gate stays shut. The locksmith understands this in his bones. He has understood it since he was 7 years old, watching his father file a key in this same workshop. The key his father was making that day was for the church, the large door, the one that faced the square. The priest had lost the original key, and the door needed to open for Sunday Mass. His father had taken the lock apart, studied the wards, measured them with calipers, drew them on a piece of slate, and then over 3 days filed a new key from a blank rod of iron. When it was done, the key slid into the lock like water, turned without resistance, clicked, the bolt drew back, the door opened, and the priest smiled and paid in silver. But that was making a key to match an existing lock. Tonight's work is different. Tonight, the locksmith is creating both. Lock and key, question and answer, maze and map, they will grow together. The lock will inform the key. The key will test the lock. Back and forth until they are perfect for each other and useless with anything else. He returns to the bench. The box sits there waiting. He picks up the scribe again. The base plate is still visible through the open end of the box. He needs to mark the center. He measures from one side to the other, 4 inches. Half of 4 is 2. He marks a point 2 inches from the left edge. Then he measures from top to bottom, 8 inches. Half of 8 is 4. He marks a point 4 inches from the front edge. Where the two measurements intersect, he makes a small cross. This is the center. This is where the keyhole will be. But before the keyhole, the wards. He reaches into a wooden drawer built into the bench. Inside are circles of iron, dozens of them, each one cut from sheet stock, filed smooth, polished. They range in diameter from 1/2 inch to 3 inches. Each one has a hole in the center, perfectly round, drilled and reamed and filed until it is exactly 1/4 inch in diameter. These are ward blanks, waiting to be customized, waiting to become walls in the maze. He selects 5 circles, 3 inches, 2.5 inches, 2 inches, 1.5 inches, 1 inch. He lays them out on the bench in descending order, concentric, each one centered on the next. They look like a target, like ripples in water. He studies them. 5 wards means 4 gaps, 4 places where the key must pass through, 4 chances to get it wrong. He picks up the largest circle, 3 inches in diameter. The iron is 1/16 of an inch thick, substantial but not heavy. He marks a point on the circumference. Any point, it does not matter. This is the reference. He measures clockwise from that point, 45 degrees. He makes a mark, measures another 45 degrees, another mark. He is dividing the circle into 8 equal sections. When he is done, he has 8 marks evenly spaced around the circumference. Now he makes a decision. The gap will be between marks 3 and 4. He scribes 2 lines from the center hole to those marks. The lines define a 45-degree wedge. This wedge will be removed. This will be the gap, the opening in the first wall of the maze. But 45 degrees is too wide. That would make the lock too easy. He adjusts. He measures inward from mark 3. 10 degrees, makes a new mark. Measures inward from mark 4. 10 degrees, another mark. Now the wedge is only 25 degrees. Better, narrower, more specific. He secures the circle in a small clamp attached to the bench. The clamp has leather pads so it will not mar the iron. He picks up a jeweler's saw. The blade is thin, 30 teeth per inch, designed for curves, for delicate work. He threads the blade through a hole he drilled at the base of the wedge, tensions it in the frame, and then he begins to cut. The sound is different from the file. Higher, a soft singing. Z-z-z-z-z-z-z. Z-z-z-z-z-z-z-z. The blade moves up and down, 40 strokes per minute, no faster. The teeth bite. Metal dust falls away in tiny spirals. He follows the scribed line. The blade is so thin it wants to wander, but he guides it. Gentle pressure, constant angle. Z-z-z-z-z-z-z. Z-z-z-z-z-z-z. The cut progresses. 1 millimeter. 2 millimeters, 3. It takes 11 minutes to cut from the center to the outer edge. When the waste piece falls away, he is left with a circle with a 25-degree wedge removed, a pie with 1 slice missing. He removes the saw blade, flips the circle, threads the blade again, cuts the other side of the wedge. Another 11 minutes. Z-z-z-z-z-z-z. Z-z-z-z-z-z-z. When the second cut is complete, he has a gap, a specific gap, 25 degrees wide. This is the gate in the first wall. But the edges are rough. The saw leaves marks. He picks up a needle file, triangular cross-section. He draws it along the cut edge. The file is small enough that it can work inside the gap. SHHHHH. SHHHHH. 20 strokes on one side, 20 on the other. The edges become smooth, straight, precise. He checks them with a small square. 90 degrees to the face of the circle. Perfect. That's the first ward aside. Picks up the second circle. 2.5 inches in diameter. Same process. But this time the gap will be in a different position. He rotates his reference point. Starts at 90 degrees from where he started on the first circle. Measures, scribes, decides on a 30-degree gap this time, slightly wider than the first. Clamps the circle, threads the saw. Z-z-z-z-z-z-z. Z-z-z-z-z-z-z. Cut, flip, thread. Z-z-z-z-z-z-z. Z. Cut, file, shhhhh, shhhhh, smooth. Third circle, 2 inches. Gap at 135 degrees from the original reference, 20 degrees wide. Narrower again. Saw, file, smooth, fourth circle, 1.5 inches. Gap at 270 degrees, 35 degrees wide. The widest yet. Saw, file, smooth, fifth circle, 1 inch, the smallest. The innermost ward, gap at 320 degrees, 15 degrees, the narrowest of all. This will be the final test, the last wall before the mechanism. When all 5 wards are complete, he lays them out again. Concentric circles, but now each one has a gap, a gate, and no 2 gates align. If you look at them from above, you can see the path the key must take. It must enter through the gap in the largest circle, then shift angle to pass through the gap in the second circle, shift again for the third, again for the fourth, and finally navigate the narrow 15-degree gap in the smallest circle. Any key that does not have teeth in exactly these positions, at exactly these angles, will strike a wall and stop. He reaches for the soldering iron. It is a copper rod, 3/8 of an inch in diameter, filed to a chisel point at one end, set into a wooden handle at the other. The copper is heated by setting it in a small charcoal brazier that sits in the corner of the workshop. The brazier is not hot like a forge, just hot enough. The iron has been sitting in there for the last hour. He pulls it out. The tip glows dull red, not bright, not orange, just a whisper of heat. He has already applied flux to the center of the base plate where the wards will mount. The flux is borax powder mixed with water into a paste. It prevents oxidation, helps the solder flow. He positions the largest ward on the base plate, centers it over the cross he scribed earlier. The 1/4-inch hole in the ward aligns with the center mark. He holds it steady with a small clamp. He touches the solder to the joint where the ward meets the base plate. The solder is a wire. 60% tin, 40% lead. It melts at a relatively low temperature. The copper iron touches the wire. The wire melts, becomes liquid, flows into the gap between the ward and the plate. He moves the iron slowly around the circumference, feeds more wire. The solder follows the heat, wicks into every crevice. When he has gone all the way around, he lifts the iron. The solder freezes almost instantly. Shiny, silver. The ward is now bonded to the plate. He waits 30 seconds for the heat to dissipate. Then he positions the second ward, concentric with the first. He has to be careful now. The second ward must be centered. If it is off by even a hair, the gaps will not align properly. The key will bind. He uses a set of calipers to measure from the edge of the first ward to the edge of the second. The measurement must be the same at all points around the circle. He adjusts, measures again, adjusts, measures. Finally, he is satisfied, clamps it. Heats the iron again, solders the second ward in place. Third ward, fourth ward, fifth ward, each one centered on the one before, each one soldered with the same care. When he is finished, the assembly looks like a bull's. 5 concentric circles, 5 different gaps. The maze is built. The walls are in place. Now the key must be designed to navigate them. But before the keyhole, the passage through which the key will enter. He returns to the center mark. The wards are soldered around it, but the center itself is still solid iron. He needs to drill through to create the channel. He reaches for the hand drill. It is called a bow drill. The design is ancient. A wooden bow, like an archery bow, with a string wrapped around a vertical shaft. The shaft is perhaps 18 inches long. At the bottom, a sharp bit of hardened steel. At the top, a handle that rotates freely. The locksmith holds the handle in his left hand. His right hand draws the bow back and forth, back and forth. The string makes the shaft spin. The bit cuts. He has already made a pilot hole, a tiny dimple in the center, just enough to guide the bit. He positions the bit in the dimple, applies downward pressure with his left hand, draws the bow back with his right. The bit begins to turn, slowly at first, then faster, back and forth, back and forth. The rhythm builds. The bit bites into the iron. The sound is a grind. a low, mechanical purr. Grrrrrrrrr, grind. Grrrrrrrrr, not loud, not harsh, just persistent, steady. The bit is 1/4 inch in diameter, the same diameter as the holes in the centers of the wards. When the locksmith drills through the base plate, the bit will pass through all 5 wards in succession, creating a single, continuous channel. He drills back and forth, back and forth. The bow moves through an arc of perhaps 2 feet. Each stroke spins the bit maybe 5 times. The cutting happens on the forward stroke. The bow goes back. The bit spins clockwise. Grrrrrrrr. The bow comes forward. The bit spins counterclockwise. Grind, back and forth. The teeth of the bit peel away tiny curls of iron. The curls accumulate around the hole. He pauses every 20 strokes to brush them away. Grrrrrrrr, grind. Grrrrrrrr, grind. The bit goes deeper, 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, 3. The base plate is 1/8 of an inch thick, just over 3 millimeters. He can feel the resistance change as the bit breaks through the back side. The last few fibers of iron give way. The bit emerges. The hole is through. But he is not done drilling. The hole goes through the base plate, yes, but it must also go through the side of the case, through the iron strip that forms one wall of the box. He positions the assembly so the hole he just drilled aligns with the center of that side wall, clamps it in the vise, starts the bow drill again. Grrrrrrrr, grind. Grrrrrrrr, grind. The bit enters the side wall, cuts through, emerges on the other side. Now there is a continuous channel. From the outside of the case, through the side wall, through the base plate, through all 5 wards. He removes the bit, replaces it with a tapered reamer. The reamer has a gentler angle. It will not cut a larger hole but will smooth the edges, remove any burrs. He runs the bow drill again. Grrrrrrrr, grind. Grrrrrrrr, grind. 30 strokes, flip the assembly, 30 strokes from the other side. When he withdraws the reamer, the hole is perfect, smooth, round, exactly 1/4 inch in diameter all the way through. He holds the assembly up to the window. The afternoon light streams through the keyhole, through the channel, through the gaps in the wards. He can see the path, the maze, the route the key must take. It enters from the outside, passes through the side wall, meets the first ward, must align with the 25-degree gap, passes through, meets the second ward, must shift angle to the 30-degree gap, passes through, third ward, fourth ward, fifth ward, each one a test, each one a gate that only the correct key can pass. And that key does not exist yet. The locksmith will make it, will file it from a blank rod, will test it in the lock, will file more, test again, back and forth, adjusting, refining, until the key slides through all 5 wards without touching, without resistance, until it reaches the bolt mechanism that waits at the end of the maze, the mechanism he will install tomorrow, the spring-loaded bolt that the key will push aside, the click that means success. But that is tomorrow's work. Tonight the maze is built, the wards are in place, the keyhole is drilled, the box is riveted, the case is sound. He sets the assembly on the bench, steps back, looks at it in the fading light. It does not look like much. A small iron box, some circles of metal soldered inside, a hole drilled through one side. But he knows what it is. He knows what it will become. A lock is a promise that what is closed will stay closed, that what is protected will stay protected, that the only way in is with knowledge, with the specific, precise knowledge encoded in the teeth of the key, and that knowledge is hard to duplicate, hard to guess, hard to defeat. The walls of the castle are strong, but the castle falls if the gate opens, and the gate opens if the lock fails. So the lock cannot fail, must not fail, will not fail. He picks up the file again. There is still work to do. The edges of the case need final smoothing. The corners need chamfering. The surface needs polishing. A lock is not just function, it is also craft. It is a thing that will be seen, touched, judged. The Lord who commissioned this lock will hold it in his hand, will examine it, will show it to his peers. It must be beautiful as well as strong, must be elegant as well as secure. shhhhhhh. The file whispers against the iron. Shhhhhhhh. He works the corners, 45-degree chamfers, just enough to soften the edges, to make them pleasant to the touch. Shhhhhhhh. Shhhhhhhh. The rhythm returns, the meditation of making. He's not thinking about the work anymore. His hands know what to do. His muscles have the memory. His eyes see what needs to be seen. He is inside the work, part of it. The file is an extension of his hand. The iron is an extension of his will. Outside, the market square is emptying. The vendors are packing their stalls. The sun is low. Soon the town crier will call the hour. The gates will close. The night watch will begin their rounds. But here in the locksmith's workshop, time moves differently, measured not in hours but in strokes, in passes of the file, in rotations of the drill, in the slow, patient accumulation of precision. shhhhhhh. 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 The file sings. The iron yields molecule by molecule. The surface becomes smoother, brighter. It catches the last rays of sunlight through the window, glows soft gold. The locksmith pauses, brushes away the filings, examines his work, runs his thumb along the edge. Smooth, good. He nods, sets down the file, picks up a piece of fine leather, rubs it over the surface with a small dab of oil. The leather polishes what the file has smoothed. The iron begins to shine. He works until the light fails, until he can no longer see the fine scratches, until his eyes tell him it is time to stop. And then he sets the lock box on a clean cloth on the bench, covers it with another cloth, banks the coals in the brazier, hangs his tools on their pegs, sweeps the filings from the floor into the collection tray, wipes down the bench with an oiled rag. The workshop settles into silence. The smell of whale oil and brass filings remains. The bench waits. The tools wait. Tomorrow the work will continue. Tomorrow the key will begin to take shape. Tomorrow the maze will be tested. But tonight the foundation is laid. The geometry is set. The walls are placed. The lock is becoming. And in the becoming there is a kind of perfection, a rightness, each piece in its place, each measurement exact, each angle true. This is the work. This is the craft. This is how secrets are kept, not with magic, not with prayers, but with iron and geometry, with files and drills, with patience and precision, with the understanding that a lock is a maze and the key is the map, and if the map is wrong, the gate stays shut. The locksmith extinguishes the lamp, locks the workshop door behind him. The iron box sits in the darkness, waiting. The wards inside it hold their positions. The gaps maintain their angles. The keyhole breathes the cool night air. And somewhere, not yet formed, not yet filed, not yet tested, the key that will match this lock exists as potential, as intention, as the next chapter in this story of keeping secrets. Tap, tap, tap. The echo of the riveting hammer lingers in the quiet. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr. The whisper of the file on iron. These sounds are the language of the locksmith, the vocabulary of security, the grammar of trust. And in the morning, when the workshop door opens again, when the light returns and the work resumes, these sounds will continue, will build on what came before, will move closer to completion. Closer to that perfect click. That moment when key meets lock, and the maze is solved, and the gate opens, and the secret is revealed. But only to those who know, only to those who hold the map, only to those who understand that precision is not just a method, it is a philosophy, a way of seeing the world, a recognition that everything matters, every angle, every measurement, every stroke of the file. Because in the end, the difference between security and vulnerability is measured in fractions, in thousandths of an inch, in degrees of arc, in the space between almost and exactly. The medieval locksmith understands this, has always understood this, will pass this understanding to his son, who works beside him now, learning the craft, learning to hear the whisper of the file, learning to feel the bite of the drill, learning to see the maze in the metal, learning that a lock is not just a thing, it is a relationship between maker and user, between question and answer, between the secret and the keeper of the secret. And so the work continues, generation to generation, lock after lock, key after key, each one unique, each one specific, each one a small marvel of geometry and craft, each one a promise kept. The walls of the castle are strong, but the door is only as strong as the small iron box that holds it shut. And that box, that lock, that maze of wards and channels and precisely cut gaps is only as strong as the hands that made it, the mind that designed it, the patience that refined it, the precision that perfected it. Tap, 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 grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr shhhh. Listen to these sounds as you drift. Let them carry you. Let them slow your breathing. Let them settle into the rhythm of rest. The lock is built. The maze is set. The keyhole waits. And tomorrow the key will begin its journey. Will be filed and tested and filed again. Will slowly take the shape it needs. Will become the answer to the question posed by the wards. But tonight, let these sounds be enough. The tap of the hammer, the grind of the drill, the whisper of the file. Let them be the last things you hear as you ease into sleep, as you close your own gates, as you secure your own locks, as you drift into the maze of dreams where precision gives way to possibility and the only key you need is rest. SHHHHHHH. 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 The file on the metal, the locksmith's lullaby, the sound of secrets being made solid, the sound of precision, the sound of craft, the sound of the medieval locksmith working in the quiet of his workshop, building the mechanical puzzle that will protect the king's treasure, building trust, one file stroke at a time, building security, one tap at a time, building the lock that will last 200 years. That will outlive its maker. That will keep its promise long after the hands that made it have turned to dust. This is the work. This is the craft. This is the story. And now, as the workshop sleeps and the lock rests beneath its cloth and the night settles over the market square, the story pauses. But it does not end. Tomorrow it continues. The key will emerge. The mechanism will be fitted. The final test will come. But that is tomorrow. Tonight there is only the echo of the work, the memory of the sounds, the satisfaction of foundation laid and walls placed and precision achieved. Sleep now, let the locksmith sleep. Let the tools rest on their pegs. Let the iron cool and settle. Let the geometry hold. Let the maze wait. The gate is shut. The secret is kept, and all is well. Morning arrives slowly in the workshop. The light comes first through the eastern windows, pale grey, then warming to amber as the sun clears the roofline of the cooper's shop next door. The locksmith is already awake, has been awake since before dawn. He lies in the small room above the workshop, listening to the town wake around him, the baker's oven crackling to life, the milk cart rattling over cobblestones, the church bell marking the hour. But he does not rise yet. He is thinking about the key, seeing it in his mind, planning each step, each cut, each test. When he finally descends the narrow stairs, the workshop is cold but not uncomfortable. The whale oil smell greets him. The brass filings catch the early light. He removes the cloth from the lock box, studies it. The wards sit in their concentric circles. The gaps hold their angles. The keyhole waits, dark and precise. Today, the key will begin. He walks to the forge corner. Not a full forge, just a small hearth, brick-lined, with a bellows mounted to the side. He lays kindling, thin strips of oak, splits them finer with a small hatchet until they are no thicker than his little finger, arranges them in a pyramid, strikes flint against steel. Once, twice, 3 times, a spark catches, smolders. He blows gently. The smolder becomes flame. Yellow, dancing. He feeds it. Larger sticks. Then small pieces of charcoal. The charcoal is hornbeam. Burns hot, burns clean. He works the bellows, gentle strokes. The flames spread, consume, turn from yellow to orange. The workshop begins to warm. While the forge builds heat, he selects his iron. The key will be made from a single piece. The rod is 3/8 of an inch in diameter, already round, already straight. The iron is good quality, purchased from a merchant who travels to the north where the ore is purer, less slag, fewer impurities. The locksmith has tested this iron before. It forges well, files well, does not crack when bent cold. This matters. He measures the rod, marks it with chalk, 8 inches for the key. He secures the rod in the vise at the mark, takes a hacksaw, the blade is fresh, 32 teeth per inch. He begins to cut, the saw sings. A higher pitch than the file, more insistent. Ting, 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 each stroke bites. Metal dust falls in tiny bright spirals. He cuts slowly, rushes nothing. The rod is hard, harder than the lock case iron. It takes 200 strokes to cut through. When the piece falls away, he is left with an 8-inch length of round rod. This is the beginning. The forge is ready now. The charcoal glows deep orange, almost red. Heat shimmers above it. He buries one end of the rod in the coals, works the bellows. The temperature climbs. He watches the iron, waiting. It takes 7 minutes. The iron begins to change color, first a dull red, then brighter, cherry red, then orange. When it reaches bright orange, almost yellow at the tip, he pulls it from the fire. The anvil weights, small, maybe 6 pounds, but the face is perfectly flat. He sets the hot iron on the face, picks up a crossbeam hammer. The peen is a wedge perpendicular to the handle. He raises the hammer, brings it down. Clang, the iron spreads, flattens. He strikes again. Clang. The sound rings off the stone walls. Clang, clang, clang. He is forging the bow, the handle of the key, the part the hand will grip. He works quickly. The iron is cooling, losing its malleability. Clang, clang, clang. The rod spreads into a teardrop shape, wide at one end, narrowing toward the middle. He rotates it, strikes from the other side, evens out the spread. Clang, clang. When the color fades to deep red, almost black, he returns it to the fire, buries it, pumps the bellows, waits. 7 minutes later, he pulls it out again. Orange, yellow at the edges, back to the anvil. This time he works the very end, forging it wider, flatter, making a disc, a circle. This is the traditional shape of a key bow, a ring, something fingers can grip, something that provides leverage. Clang, clang, clang. The hammer dances, precise impacts, each one in exactly the right place. The iron flows, spreads, becomes the shape he holds in his mind. 3 heats, 3 sessions at the anvil. When he is satisfied with the bow, he moves to the stem. This is the shaft, the part that will enter the keyhole. It must stay round, must stay 3/8 of an inch in diameter. He does not forge this part, just smooths it, straightens it, uses a lighter hammer, tap, 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 gentle persuasion. The iron is still hot but cooling, still workable but firming. Bit comes last. The flag, the business end of the key. This is where the teeth will be cut, where the knowledge will be encoded. He heats the end opposite the bow, the last 2 inches of the rod. When it glows orange, he sets it on the anvil, uses the crossbeam again, strikes perpendicular to the stem. Clang. The iron begins to spread at 90 degrees, forming a flat plate, a rectangular flag extending from the round stem. Clang, clang. He rotates the work, strikes from the top, from the bottom. Evens the thickness, makes it uniform, 1/8 of an inch thick, 1/2 an inch wide, 2 inches long. When the forging is done, he quenches the key in water. The water is in a wooden bucket, oak, bound with iron hoops. He plunges the hot iron in. Hiss, steam explodes upward. The water boils around the metal, bubbles rage, then settle. The iron cools, turns black. He lifts it out, sets it on the bench. The key blank is rough. Scale covers it. Black oxide from the forging. Hammer marks texture the surface, but the shape is there. The bow, the stem, the bit. The skeleton of what will become the answer to the lark's question. He picks up a wire brush. Brass bristles, begins to scrub. The scale flakes away. The iron beneath is grey, clean. The brush makes a scratching sound. Scritch, scritch, scritch. He scrubs the entire surface. The bow, the stem, the bit. When he is finished, the key is clean. ready for the next step. He secures the key in a small vise mounted at the end of the bench, just the bow. The stem and bit extend horizontally, parallel to the bench top. He picks up a flat file, medium cut, begins to smooth the forged surfaces. The hammer marks disappear. The edges become defined. SHHHHHHH. SHHHHHHH. The file whispers. He works systematically. Top of the bow, bottom of the bow, sides. Then the bit, top surface, bottom surface, both edges. The stem he leaves mostly round, just removes any high spots, any irregularities. 2 hours of filing. His arm moves with mechanical consistency. The same stroke, the same pressure, again and again. SHHHHHHH. SHHHHHHH. Metal dust accumulates, falls to the tray below. He brushes it away periodically, checks his progress, files more. When he is satisfied, he switches to a finer file. Smooth cut. This removes the scratches left by the medium file, makes the surface even smoother. SHHHHHHH. SHHHHHHH. The sound softens. Becomes almost a sigh. Now the key blank is ready, smooth, clean, precise in its dimensions, but it has no teeth, no cuts, no knowledge. If he inserted this blank into the lock right now, it would stop at the first ward. The solid bit would strike the iron circle, would go no further. The maze would reject it. So now begins the most delicate work, the work that defines the locksmith's craft, the cutting of the teeth, the encoding of the map. He walks to a shelf, takes down a small clay pot. Inside is lampblack, soot from the workshop lamp collected over months, mixed with a tiny amount of linseed oil to make it sticky. He dips a rag in the lampblack, coats the entire bit of the key, top and bottom, both edges. The iron disappears under a layer of black, matte, dull. He sets the key aside, lets the coating dry. 10 minutes. While he waits, he studies the lock again, removes it from the bench, holds it up to the light, looks through the keyhole, can see the first ward, the gap in it, the angle. He notes the position, 25 degrees from vertical. The gap is 25 degrees wide, so the key must have a tooth cut away to pass through. A notch, 25 degrees wide, starting at 25 degrees from vertical. He returns to the key. The lampblack is dry. He picks up the key, aligns the stem with the keyhole, begins to push. The stem enters the hole easily, 1 inch, 2 inches, then it stops. The bit has met the first ward. The solid bit cannot pass through the gap, but more importantly, the bit is now touching the ward, pressing against it. And where it touches, the lampblack will transfer, will rub off, will mark the ward. He applies gentle pressure, pushes. The key does not move. He twists slightly. Left, right, still does not move. Good, this is expected. He withdraws the key, carefully, slowly. And there, on the surface of the black-coated bit, he can see a mark, a bright line, silver gray, the iron showing through where the lampblack has rubbed away. This mark shows exactly where the bit struck the ward, exactly where metal met metal, exactly where the obstruction is. He secures the key in the vise again, studies the mark. It runs along the left edge of the bit, about 1/4 inch from the end. This is where he must cut. He picks up a needle file, round cross-section, very fine, positions it at the mark, begins to stroke. Rasp, rasp, rasp. The sound is different from the larger file, quieter, more intimate. The needle file removes tiny amounts of metal, whispers where the large file shouted. Rasp, rasp, rasp. He cuts a small notch, following the mark, deepening it. The notch is perhaps 1/16 of an inch deep, the width of the file. He works carefully, slowly, checking constantly. 20 strokes. He stops, removes the key from the vise, coats the bit with lampblack again, waits for it to dry, inserts the key into the lock. This time it goes farther. The bit enters the keyhole, passes through the first ward. The notch he cut aligns with the gap, allows passage. The key slides deeper, 3 inches, 4 inches, then stops again. The second ward, he pushes gently, twists, cannot pass, withdraws the key. Another mark, this one on the right edge, farther from the end. He files again. Rasp, 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 a second notch, deeper than the first, wider. The second ward's gap is 30 degrees, requires more material removed. Coat, dry, insert, stop, withdraw, file, rasp, 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 coat, dry, insert, stop, withdraw, file. This is the process, the iteration, the conversation between lock and key. The lock says no, the key adjusts, tries again. The lock says no, but closer. The key adjusts more, gradually, increment by increment. The key learns the maze, learns where the walls are, where the gates are, learns the precise shape required to pass through. Third ward, fourth ward, fifth ward. Each one requires its own notch, its own careful filing. The lampblack shows the way. Like a map revealed one line at a time, each mark a clue, each clue solved with the rasp of the needle file. Rasp, rasp, rasp. The sound becomes a rhythm, a heartbeat, the pulse of creation, of problem and solution, of question and answer. 6 hours. 6 hours of coding and testing and filing. The key is transforming. The bit, once a solid rectangular flag, now has 5 notches cut into it, 5 teeth, each one a specific depth, a specific width, a specific position. Together they form the code, the map, the knowledge that will allow passage through the maze. He coats the bit one more time, inserts the key. It slides through the first ward, through the second, through the third, through the fourth, through the fifth, and continues deeper, until the bow touches the outside of the lock case. The key is fully inserted, has passed through all 5 wards without stopping, without resistance. The lampblack is pristine, unmarked, no rub marks. The key floats through the maze like water. This is the skeleton key, not a key that opens all locks, but a key that has been reduced to its skeleton, its essential form, only what is necessary. The minimum teeth required to pass the wards. He withdraws the key, studies it. 5 notches, 5 teeth, each one different. Together a unique pattern, a signature, a password made solid. But the key is not finished. It has passed the maze, yes. But a lock is more than a maze. A lock must do work, must move something, must draw a bolt or lift a latch or engage a mechanism. And for that, the key needs one more tooth, the lifting tooth, the one that will push against the bolt. The locksmith sets the key aside, returns to the lock. There is still space inside the case, beyond the wards. This is where the bolt will live. The bolt is the actual barrier, the physical obstruction that prevents the door from opening. The wards protect the bolt, ensure that only the correct key can reach it, but the bolt itself does the work. He goes to the stock rack, selects an iron bar, 3/4 of an inch square, 6 inches long, heavy. This will be the bolt. He marks it, scribes a center line down its length, marks a point 1 inch from one end. This is where the cam slot will go, the slot that the key's lifting tooth will engage. He secures the bar in the vise. Vertical. The mark at eye level picks up a drill, bow drill. The bit is 1/4 inch, the same diameter as the key stem. He positions the bit on the mark, begins to pump the bow, back and forth, grrrrrrr, grind, grrrrrrr. The drill cuts into the iron. Slowly, the bar is thick, hard. It takes 20 minutes to drill through from one side to the other. When the bit emerges from the far side, he has a round hole, 1/4 inch diameter, drilled perpendicular to the length of the bar. But a round hole is not enough. The key must not only enter this hole but must turn, must rotate 90 degrees, must push the bolt sideways. For this, the hole must become a slot. He removes the drill, selects a small chisel, cold chisel, the edge is sharp, hardened. He positions the chisel in the hole, strikes it with a small hammer. Tap, tap, tap. The chisel cuts, extends the hole, makes it longer, turns the circle into an oval, into a slot. Tap, tap, tap. He works from both sides, meets in the middle. When he is done, the slot is 3/4 of an inch long, still a 1/4 inch wide. The key stem will fit through it, and when the key turns, the edges of the slot will catch on the stem, will be pushed, will move the bolt. He files the slot smooth, removes burrs, checks the fit with a short piece of rod. The rod slides through, rotates freely. Good. He sets the bolt aside, picks up a strip of steel. Not iron, steel, spring steel, 1 inch wide, 4 inches long, 1/16 of an inch thick. This will become the spring, the element that pushes the bolt forward, that holds it in the locked position. That must be overcome by the key. Spring steel is different from iron. It has carbon, has been folded and hammered and heat-treated, has a memory, a desire to return to its original shape. But raw from the supplier, it is hard, brittle, it would snap if bent. To make it springy, it must be tempered, heat-treated at a specific temperature, cooled at a specific rate. This is delicate work, precise work. The difference between a good spring and broken steel is measured in degrees. He returns to the forge. The charcoal bed is still hot, glowing. He adds fresh coal, works the bellows. The temperature rises. He holds the steel strip in a pair of tongs, inserts it into the coals, watches. The steel begins to change color, first a pale gray, then darker, then a faint brown, then blue. This is the critical moment, the blue heat, not the orange of forging, not the red of welding. Blue, a shimmer of blue across the surface, like oil on water. This is the tempering temperature. For spring steel, for flexibility without brittleness. He counts to 10, slowly, then withdraws the strip, plunges it immediately into oil, not water. Water cools too fast, creates stress, creates cracks. Oil cools more gently. The steel enters the oil, hiss. The sound is softer than the water quench, less violent, smoke rises. The smell of hot oil fills the workshop, sharp, slightly acrid, but not unpleasant, familiar. He holds the strip in the oil for 30 seconds, then withdraws it. The steel is black, dull. He wipes it with a rag. The surface beneath is gray, slightly mottled. But when he flexes it between his fingers, it bends, springs back, bends again, does not break, does not yield. Perfect. He files the spring strip to final dimension, smooths the edges, then bends it into shape, a simple curve. Like a shallow letter, see one end will be anchored to the inside of the lock case. The other end will press against the bolt. When the bolt is pushed back, the spring compresses, stores energy. When the key is removed, the spring expands, pushes the bolt forward, keeps the lock engaged. Now the assembly begins. He lays out all the components on the bench, the case with its wards, the bolt, the spring, the key. Small iron pins for hinges, tiny rivets. He studies them, plans the sequence, what goes in first, what goes in last, how the pieces will interact, how they will move. He positions the bolt inside the case, slides it through a rectangular slot he cuts in one side wall. The slot is just slightly larger than the bolt, allows it to move back and forth. The bolt extends outside the case by 4 inches when engaged. When locked, the key will push it back inside, flush with the case, unlocked. He attaches the spring. One end is riveted to the base plate inside the case, near the front. The other end presses against the back of the bolt. The spring is under compression, wants to push the bolt forward, wants to keep it extended. He tests the action, pushes the bolt back with his finger, releases, the spring drives it forward. Clack. Good, solid, reliable. Now the key. He inserts it through the keyhole, through the wards. The stem enters the slot in the bolt. He rotates the key 90 degrees. The stem catches on the edges of the slot, pushes. The bolt begins to move, sliding backward, compressing the spring. The key continues to turn. The bolt continues to slide. When the key has rotated 90 degrees, the bolt is fully retracted, flush with the case. The lock is open. He reverses the turn. The key rotates back. The spring pushes the bolt forward. The key stem slides through the slot. When the key returns to vertical, he withdraws it. The bolt stays extended. The spring holds it. The lock is engaged, locked. He tests it again. Insert key, turn, bolt retracts, reverse turn, withdraw key, bolt extends. Insert, turn, retract, reverse, withdraw, extend. The motion is smooth, consistent, reliable. But the case is still open on one end. The mechanism is exposed. The final step is to close the case, to rivet the end plate in place. He has already prepared the plate, a rectangle of iron, 4 inches by 2 inches, the same dimensions as the open end of the case. Holes are drilled around the perimeter, matching holes in the case walls. He positions the plate, aligns the holes, inserts rivets, one at a time. 16 rivets in total, 4 per side. He works methodically. Each rivet is inserted, the work is flipped. The anvil supports the head. The hammer upsets the tail. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm returns, the lullaby of joining, of making permanent. Tap, tap, tap. Each rivet is the same, each one perfect. Tap, tap, tap. The last rivet is set. He examines the case, sealed, complete. The mechanism is inside, hidden, protected. Only the keyhole shows. Only the bolt extends. The wards are invisible. The spring is invisible. The mystery is complete. The puzzle is ready. He oils the mechanism, tips a few drops of whale oil into the keyhole, works the key in and out. In and out, the oil spreads, coats the wards, coats the bolt, coats the spring, reduces friction, protects against rust. The smell of whale oil becomes stronger, clean, precise. The smell of maintenance, of care. One more test, the final test. He sets the lock on the bench, inserts the key, pushes it through the wards. They offer no resistance. The key knows the path, has learned the maze. The stem enters the bolt slot. He begins to turn, slowly, feeling the engagement. The stem catches the slot, begins to push. The bolt begins to slide. He feels the spring compressing, resistance, but not too much, just right. The key continues to turn, 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees. Click. The bolt is fully retracted. The spring is compressed. The lock is open. He holds the key there. 90 degrees, feels the spring pressure, constant, even, then begins to reverse. The spring pushes back, helps the key return. The bolt begins to extend, sliding forward, returning to position. The key reaches vertical. He withdraws it, smooth, easy, and the bolt continues forward, driven by the spring, until it reaches full extension. Clunk, the sound of engagement, the sound of security, the sound of the lock doing its job. Click, clunk, click, clunk. He tests it again, and again. Each time the same, the click of the turn, the clunk of the engagement, a mechanical conversation. The key speaks, the lock answers, the bolt moves, the spring responds, everything working together, everything precise, everything correct. He sets the lock down, steps back, studies it. A small iron box, 6 inches long, 4 inches wide, 2 inches tall, 16 rivets visible, 1 keyhole, 1 bolt extending from the side. It does not look like much, but he knows what it is, knows what it represents, knows the hours of work inside it. The filing, the drilling, the forging, the tempering, the testing, the iteration, the precision. This lock will be mounted on a chest, a large chest. Oak, iron-bound. The chest will hold gold, the king's gold, payment for soldiers, for supplies, for alliances. The chest will sit in a guarded room, but the guards cannot be everywhere, cannot watch all the time. They sleep, they change shifts, they can be bribed. But the lock cannot be bribed, cannot be convinced, cannot be fooled. The lock asks only one question. Do you have the key? And if the answer is no, the gold stays hidden. The locksmith wraps the lock in soft leather, ties it with cord. Tomorrow he will deliver it to the castle, will mount it himself, will explain to the steward how it works, will hand over the key, and then his work will be done. The secret will be transferred, from his hands to the king's hands, from maker to user. But tonight the lock sits on his bench, complete, perfect. He extinguishes the forge, banks the coals, hangs the hammers on their pegs, the files in their racks, sweeps the floor, wipes down the bench. The workshop settles into evening quiet. The sun is low, casting long shadows through the windows. The light is golden, soft. He picks up the wrapped lock, carries it upstairs to his room, sets it on a shelf, safe, secure tomorrow's delivery. But tonight it rests. The wards hold their positions. The bolt extends. The spring maintains its compression. Inside the dark leather wrapping, the geometry is perfect. The angles are true. The tolerances are exact. The mechanism is ready. In the morning at the castle, the chest waits. Empty now, but soon to be filled. The locksmith will arrive at mid-morning, will carry the wrapped lock through the gate, past the guards, up the stairs, to the treasury room. The steward will be waiting. The locksmith will unwrap the lock, will show how it mounts. 4 bolts through the chest lid into the case. He has already drilled the holes in the case, threaded. The bolts will pass through the lid, screw into the case. The lock will be inseparable from the chest. He will mount it, tighten the bolts, test the action, insert the key, turn, click, the bolt retracts, opens, reverse, withdraw, clunk, the bolt extends, locked. He will hand the key to the steward. The steward will test it, will feel the click, the clunk will nod, satisfied, will pay the locksmith, silver coins, the agreed price. The locksmith will bow, will leave, will return to his workshop, and the lock will remain, will begin its service, will keep the gold safe, for years, for decades, for generations. But that is tomorrow. Tonight the lock rests on the shelf. The key lies beside it, separated for now, but forever matched, forever paired. The only key that will open this lock, the only lock this key will open. A relationship, permanent, defined by geometry and precision and care. The locksmith eats a simple meal. Bread, cheese, ale, sits by the window, watches the market square empty, the vendors packing, the shoppers departing, the sun setting, the day ending. He is tired, good tired, the tiredness of work completed, of problems solved, of skills exercised. His hands ache slightly, from the filing, the hammering, the fine motor control, but it is a pleasant ache, a reminder, a badge. He finishes his meal, washes his hands. The lampblack is finally gone, scrubbed away. His fingers are clean, calloused but clean. He climbs into bed. The room is simple. A bed, a table, a chair, the shelf with the wrapped lock, the window showing the darkening sky. He lies down, closes his eyes, and the sounds of the day replay in his mind. Tap, 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 grrrrrrrr, grind, grrrrrrrr, shhhhhhh, rasp, rasp, click, clunk, the sounds of the locksmith. The sounds of his craft, the sounds of precision. Sleep comes easily. His breathing slows, deepens. The workshop below is dark, silent. The tools hang on their pegs, the bench is clear, the forge is cold, everything in its place. Everything ready for tomorrow, for the next lock, the next key, the next problem, the next solution, because the work continues, always continues. There are always secrets to keep, always doors to secure, always mazes to build and maps to encode. And as the heavy iron bolt sits securely in its housing, guarding the silence of the room, the key is removed. The secret is safe. Sleep well.